The instruments of democracy are the instruments of peace. We gather here today.
Good afternoon, everybody. We'll just give everyone a minute or so to settle in, and then we'll start with the second day on this webinar series on personalization of education. So give us a minute, and then we'll get going. Hi, Branko. Nice to see you.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Pleasure to be with you today. So,
Yeah, I think we can slowly get started. Kamakshi,
Can
if
get
you want to kick
started?
off. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Let's go ahead.
Could we have the welcome slide up, Stefan?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kamakshi Rajagopal, and welcome to the second session of our webinar week on personalization of education, empowering learners through personalized content and flexible delivery. So as you can see, this is our second day. Yesterday we had a first kickoff. Maybe some of you attended this as well, where we had two presentations on the report that EADTU has created with a task force on personalization, and which is also the reason why we are organizing this webinar week, because there are several very nice contributions there that we wanted to highlight. And we also heard from Annabelle Bills, who presented a case of Fern Universiteit in Hagen in Germany, where several projects on where they have implemented different forms of personalization in their university. So if you did miss it, I would highly recommend to catch up because there's a lot of very nice information there. So today we have three speakers on this session on learner pathways, engagement, and ethics. I will jump in with the first speaker, who is Pedro Cabral, who is has a PhD in e-learning and distance education from Universidade Aberta de Portugal, and has been working in the e-learning field since 2007. He was part of the team that implemented the e-learning project at the University of Lisbon, and he has also worked in the area of massive open online courses at Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. And currently he's the manager of the Now platform, which is a Portuguese language MOOC platform with more than 500,000 users. And he also serves as a lecturer at the Universidade Aberta in Portugal. So, Pedro, I give the floor to you. Let's see.
Thank you. First of all, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the invitation, and of course, thank you for everyone for joining this session. I hope that I could give you some contributes about what is happening here, mostly in Portugal. So I'm bringing you the case of our MOOC platform and how are we doing in terms of personalization. But to give a little bit of context, where do we come from? Basically, I'm based on FCCN. FCCN is the National Research and Education Network. It's part of the National Research and Education Network. And we have a lot of these organizations in the different countries in Europe, such as SURF in the Netherlands. That's the one that I mostly know because of my previous experience. And of course, since we are connected in here with the higher education and the scientific area, and because the MOOCs, and let me bring it to the reason why creating a MOOC platform for the Portuguese, there was a movement regarding the regarding the MOOCs in Europe. And of course, we have seen this Spain, Italy, France, and so on and so forth to embrace this area and the Open University with FutureLearn back then. And we thought that it might make sense to have something in the Portuguese language. We shouldn't have courses in English, although we have a few, because for that you have the other platforms that well do serve this purpose. And of course, since we are part of the NRAN in Portugal, and we are advocates for open science. This was a good opportunity to bring the open education field to the floor, because that's sometimes a field that doesn't have the enough attention in our countries, I would say. So the main mission that we had was to bring in the purpose of open education, of democratization of education above all. But during the process, and that's what a funny thing, and it is probably what makes the Now platform perhaps a little bit more distinct from the other MOOC platforms, is that even though we are more connected to the higher education and to the scientific area, there was a big demanding when it comes to public services that needed to have training dedicated for them. We had a lot of institutions that are responsible for that area, such as the entity that is responsible for the training of all public servants, and for instance, the entity that is responsible for employment in Portugal. So there was a connection or a need in here to consolidate and to agglomerate and to centralize, as we have in here in this PowerPoint, to centralize all the needs from the Portuguese context into a centralized MOOC platform in order to disseminate this knowledge. Also, we were connected at the same time with the movement of digitalization and to bring more digital competences into the Portuguese area. So these different pieces together, they contributed for the creation of the Now platform. So far, we have 70 entities from higher education, from public sector, and also from the private sector, because we wanted to bring all the society into the platform, even though the private sector is the one who has less representation. And of course, we started as the initial idea of a MOOC platform where most of the entities were content curators. So we wanted to bring their knowledge into the Portuguese context. However, during this, since we exist, the platform is working since 2019. So since then, we had a lot of entities that didn't want just to create courses, but above all, they wanted to consume courses, but to have some kind of monetization of what their employees were doing. So this was a big change in the way that we thought and we have foreseen the platform itself. So after giving you this important context, let me bring you to the topic of these 2 days of session in here. So what are we doing regarding personalization? One of the big challenges that we face is that due to the fact that we have a lot of courses, for you to have a notion, statistics, what are the statistics that we have? We have 500,000 users registered in the platform. We have more than 400 courses available right at this time, which brings a big, sorry, a big challenge that is related to how do the learners that come to the platform, how do they search, how do they look into their courses, or possible courses that they do want to have. So the simple tools that we have, it's a simple search tool, like the one that you see in this picture. When we start to make a search, like I was doing on cybersecurity specifically, and immediately pops up the what organizations are related to this topic, which courses do we have in this with this name. But of course, this I would say that this simple search sometimes isn't enough. And I have to admit that currently with the powering tools that we have from AI, I one of the major things that we have been discussing, even in the European MOOC consortium, is to have power tools based on AI that could easily help a learner to find their courses. But besides that, we have advanced search filtering and metadata that we have when we create each course description. So it's easier for the learners to find their courses. And also we have specific topics with that we call it pathways, and the learners could find in those topics which courses they could do, what type of courses they could do, of course. So these are the simple basic tools that we have from the start. And by the way, this platform that we are, or this software that we are seeing in here, where we do the search, it's an open source software that is called Richie. This is done also by FunMOOC. FunMOOC, it's the French MOOC entity that is responsible for the MOOCs in France. And we have been developing this software with them for this search. But we would say that this is not enough for the users that we have. And of course, like I mentioned in the context that I've gave before, one of the big entities that we have in here is the training entity responsible for the public servants, and what we are seeing in this screenshot that we have in here is a dedicated site that we created for them, that the users that go to the Now platform, they can select the specific site and go to this site that has more specific filtering dedicated usually for what the public servants do try to look for. It is related, for instance, in here, specific competences that we can see in here in this screenshot, but they do have also filtering based on the career pathway that they are taking, and so on and so forth. So it makes life much more easier for the user to find the courses. Another element that we consider quite relevant in this personalization that we have been working and we are improving a lot is in our email marketing. So every single month we send emails for our platform users regarding new courses, talking about new partnerships that we have created. So the people that engage in our platform are aware of what we are doing. And of course, one of the things that we have been trying to improve, it's really to get information about our users, what are their preferences, and so on and so forth, to create personalized email marketing newsletters that help to provide more specific information. So this is the work that we have already implemented, but we are developing a lot of other tools because we consider that what we have it's not enough for a lot of users. Because imagine that we have a platform with 500 or more courses, like the big MOOC platforms do have, and a person could feel lost or has a feeling of feeling lost a lot of times. So what we are creating right now, and this is also a practice that we can find in other platforms, is a course recommendation system that is based in AI, where after you are finishing your course, or when you're in your dashboard, you have a lot of suggestion of possible courses that you might be interested in doing. That's one of the things. The other tool that we are creating, and I expect to have it in the beginning of the next year, is that, like I've mentioned before, we have not just entities that create courses in here, but we have a lot of entities that want to consume courses. And what we are doing for them is for they to define their own catalogs for their own employees in order to provide a specific page where their employees could find the courses that the HR department wants to develop for them to develop. So when we are doing the career development assessment of a person, and we can identify quite easily which type of courses a person could have, this HR department could create personalized catalogs for these users. So this is I think a powerful tool that we are right now creating that will have a lot of developments in the future for sure. But the concept itself, I think it's quite useful for this scenario specifically. And finally, what I wanted to bring, it's about the future. Probably in the last session, a lot of these points they have talked about. By the way, the software that we use as a learning management system is the Open edX. And the community, we are part of the Open edX community, of course, as an open source software that exists. And one big change that is currently happening there is in the structure of the platform itself, is that instead of creating courses, we are going to create library contents. Library contents with a lot of metadata included. So in order, when you create a course, you could bring some of those libraries, and that helps sometimes for specific courses. We could adapt for a specific target audience and adapt another courses that might be similar to that one, but due to the what we grab from the different libraries, we could reuse those elements. And the reuse word in here, it's quite important, because what is the view of the community, of the Open edX community, it's that you create really nanoparticles of learning, and of course you could build as a course developer different courses based on those libraries that should be as open as possible, so the course teams could create this. I would say that in the future, and I see that in some platforms, that the user himself could create their own courses, and I think that's also what's in the mindset of the Open edX community in here, and probably we'll have IA power tools that could drive into this perspective in searching content specifically inside those libraries, that could provide the information that the person really needs for their career, their new employment, new employ, or new job. That's what I wanted to say. Sorry, and this really is going to give a lot of dynamic on the way that we create the pathways themselves. Currently, the pathways are quite rigid. We are the ones that create them. The HR is the one who creates it, but we want to give the ownership to the user. Of course, we know that the user needs to have a little much more autonomy and control on, and for that you have to have higher skills. But we could give the full package of base to base that someone selects for you what you need to learn towards in the ultimate stage that the person selects nano content that he or she needs for her career progression or development and so on and so forth. And of course, this is what I wanted to bring for this discussion, and I hope that what I've presented in here was meaningful for you. And I thank you for once again for the invitation, and hope that this contributes to the discussion that we are going to have.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Pedro. We have some questions for you because we have a bit of time, I think about just under 10 minutes. So maybe I will start with Ellen's question, which hooks on to your last point. So she asks, how are various learning paths assessed, and how is this recognized by the various involved organizations and or broader in society? So by the organizations you mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to assessment and when we think in these nanoparticles, we cannot consider this as a course, right? And if we consider the concept of a course needs to have learning objectives, needs to have the structure in modules, the content, the assessment that really is aligned with the learning objectives and so on and so forth. And of course, when we think about this more do-it-yourself approach, the assessment doesn't exist, I would say. It really needs to be then the person itself to assess if the skills were earned, not earned. That's not the correct word, but you understood what I want to mean with this. And at the same time, I would say that the depending on the purpose that you have with that content, you might be the one to have to assess it, or someone else needs to assess it. And what you can do, and this is an idea that is been discussing for quite a long time, is the role of universities. And you could grab that knowledge and bring it to a university and say, I have this knowledge. Are you able to consider that this knowledge that I have in here, it's enough for me to have a degree? It should be part of a degree, and you as a university are the one who needs to make that evaluation of that profile of that person that brings already with the knowledge, and you as a university that is the one who does the certification is the one who is going to do that. So I think that this is probably the way, or what we have been discussing for quite a long time.
Yeah.
These aren't my ideas, of course.
But it ties in with these procedures that you see at universities to recognize prior learning and those kind of pathways. Yeah. Maybe then I will come to Luis's questions. He has 2 questions. The first one is, has now found resistance from traditional university institutions in establishing partnerships with them, or have you seen that there's a willingness to adopt MOOCs?
Well, the reality in Portugal is quite hard, I would say, because the mission of universities in polytechnics, they consider it as the traditional way of learning, so face to face, and that's it. However, there are a few institutions either university and polytechnics that do believe that the online education could be an important element in the strategy that they have for lifelong learning, mostly for lifelong learning, I would say. Um, well, not only once again, but mostly for that. So yeah, there is a lot of resistance. And above all, what we need to do is to make a good story on how this could be good for your organization. And one of the things that we have as an open lock in this situation is the partnership that we have directly with edX.org. Because our platform is Portugal X at edX.org, and a lot of institutions do want of higher universities and the polytechnics do want to go to there because there they have a broader audience. Even though we have a big audience, there you have a broader audience, and that's one of the keys that we have for bringing other institutions that usually are more reluctant to come for this type of scenario.
Yeah. So you see that there are also other factors playing a role in this case. It's also this aspect of let's say the commercial side, where universities are also have to sell their degrees. And maybe then the other question, because you mentioned that you have an active partnership with the Portuguese government, I guess. And Luis's question concerns this. He says it's the Now project is associated with FCT, which is which the Portuguese government now has decided to extinguish. And will now be able to continue with the new institution?
Exactly. So it's a quite particular thing in Portugal that the basically FCCN is part of FCT. FCT is going to be merged into a new agency, but in fact, our organization FCCN is going to provide services for two different agencies. Specifically, the Now platform is going to be on the agency for research and innovation. So we are going to continue the work mostly regarding long life learning. So we are not going to be connected with education, which means mostly primary school, secondary school, and those. That's not an area that we are going to work, even though we work with the teachers in the training of the teachers in the long life learning process. But we have a steady element in here that the project is going. It's going to continue to grow. Last month we have 50,000 users enrolling, and those were the numbers that we could reach in the first year. So in 1 month, what we are doing the previous years, we have currently a steady ground for working for sure.
I see. And then maybe there is just you can touch upon this very shortly. The nanoparticles, or like the little modules that you were talking about, do you have any kind of model for them, or do you have some examples? How do you define that?
This is I mentioned in the slide that was talking about the future. I know that the community is still developing. There is a lot of discussion on this topic. Even the AI it's another topic that is coming into the community a lot. So mostly there is a lot of discussions, and the software engineerings are based on that those discussions are trying to find a way to bring the software of the Open edX software into that area.
Yeah.
How is it going to how is it going to happen? How is it going to be? I'm not sure, but for sure in May I will have more news on that because we have a meeting together in the US. And for sure, I would say that but in that time I will have more answers to that
Okay.
specific
And then,
question.
yeah, perfect. So we will hear more about it in the coming
Exactly.
years then.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Pedro.
You're welcome.
With that, I think we move on to the second speaker, Eleanor Moore. Yeah, now we can see Eleanor. Just very shortly, so Eleanor is a senior learning designer at the Open University in the UK, and her work focuses on student-centered curriculum design. She has co-authored OU guidance and resources, including the award-winning Responsible by Design framework. So very welcome, Eleanor. We look forward to hearing your presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the warm welcome and for having me here today. So I'm going to get the presentation on screen. Can you see that okay? Perfect. So I'm here today to talk to you about student voice, but also linking that to a lot of the work that myself and other colleagues at the OU that I work with are doing around AI, because we're hearing a lot about AI-driven personalisation, adaptive pathways, predictive analytics, automated feedback, and yet there's one question that cuts through all of this is how can we best design in personalisation? At the Open University, we have a mechanism called the Curriculum Design Student Panel, CDSP, and I'm just going to briefly explain what this is and how important it is in our work. In learning design, we work across 3 different hub areas, which are in the graphic on this screen, working together, designing experiences and evidence-based. And those 3 hub areas come together for our offering to the entire university across all faculties. And the student panel sits within the evidence-based hub. So it was established in 2016, so it'll be 10 years old next year. It was established as a structured, supported student voice initiative. Its purpose is to involve students early on in the design process, right when decisions are still flexible. This is powerful because it makes sure that it can ground personalisation in reality, in evidence, and not in assumptions or things that have gone before. And we found that students really help us to understand what kinds of flexibility and personalisation support their learning and what sorts of things can easily overwhelm them. So just in brief, how does it work? Well, when the panel was first put in place, there were about 500 students. Participation is totally voluntary. We've currently got about 1,800 students. I think the number of students we have at the OU is one of our big strengths. And some of those activities can be very broad, sort of surveys, discussion forums, and some can be very, very targeted to a certain subject or level or background. But crucially, students can choose when and how they engage. And this means that their insights reflect their authentic lived experience. And this then helps us to design personalisation that aligns with their reality. So it's not just about getting feedback, it's much more than that. It's about learning from students and interpreting that into design as early as possible. So for example, things that we as designers might find intuitive, students might find confusing. Things that we might find empowering, they might find overwhelming. So this sort of approach tells us a lot about how to effectively personalize learning, much more than analytics alone ever could. So typical responses will help us do things like refine pacing, clarity, space out the cognitive load, have the right degree of learner choice, and so on. Particularly powerful activity I worked on recently did away completely with the original approach, which was like a headshot to screen video of an academic talking about a philosophical concept, and that was replaced with an animation, which was much easier to understand, and the students helped to design that. So one or two examples in action. We do a lot of interactive materials testing, like the example that I've just given about the video to animation, and this helps to improve usability, accessibility, cognitive load, and so on. We also do a lot of work around assessment clarity, and this can lead to reframing instructions, more transparency, etc. And we also have a mechanism called Question of the Month, which is open to the entire panel, and it's designed to have a very, very broad question. And we've kind of taken that over for July in the last 3 years. The team I work in have put together a survey around the use of generative AI. So we've now got a really, really rich data set about what our students think about AI and how they use it from the last 3 years. So thinking about AI then and personalisation, as we know, AI is transforming the learning landscape. Some examples that I mentioned at the start: predictive analytics, adaptive pathways, and so on. How, getting automated feedback. These are all amazing things, but we need to think about the questions that raises, such as agency, transparency, data rights, and for us in learning design, pedagogy. We know from many sources across the sector that we need to shift ever more to a focus on process over product, not just to mitigate AI misuse, but to include students as co-creators, so giving them agency over their own learning. And there's plenty of research that will argue towards this shift of valuing and process over products, and I've put a few links in the last slide. All of this has led to the establishment of various different resources and frameworks and so on at the Open University over the last couple of years. And on this slide, you can see a graphic of what we call the Responsible by Design framework, which won the Association for Learning and Technology Ethical EdTech Award earlier this year. What we were particularly proud of was the judges praised the practical simplicity of the framework. It's intended as a conversation starter, not as a solution, although there is in the document, there is what we call a solutions bank, which again is designed to help educators start to think around some of the areas where they might make changes to curriculum design as they're writing activities. It's arranged around 4 pillars, as you can see: environment, bias, exploitation of both people and resources, and the digital divide. And there is an external version of this framework available, and I'm sure all of these resources will be shared later. Alongside that, we also have the Critical AI Literacy Framework, which was led by Professor Miriam Hauk, who is a Professor of Critical Digital Pedagogy at the Open University. And the idea was to put together a framework around pillars that would be student-facing, but would also give educators and staff hints and tips about how to implement. And this is essential because personalisation is only really meaningful when learners understand and can question what they're doing and the systems that shape their learning. And we're really pushing this now in everything that we do with the different faculties that we work with, to make sure that critical AI literacy, and that means through the EDIA lens, is firmly embedded in all AI style activities. And I know that Miriam would be very keen for you to get in touch if you want to know more about this framework, and her details are on the last slide. This brings me on to risks of over-personalisation. And we know that through all the work that we're doing around building these frameworks and the work with the CDSP and obviously wider sector research, that personalisation can go wrong. Many of our student panel activities, we see the same sorts of themes emerging, that too much choice can be overwhelming. Flexibility without guidance can create uncertainty. Fragmentation can reduce coherence, and sometimes that means that when faced with a personalised pathway through learning, that can be isolating if it isn't scaffolded. And likewise, the academics, the staff writing the material can feel the same thing. Too much overwhelm if they've got to write different pathways, because that has implications for marking guidance and criteria and so on. So personalisation needs to be intentional and guided and ethical and underpinned by all of that, but even more so in this AI-driven world. And again, there's plenty of sector research. There's a link there to the HEPI, the Higher Education Policy Institute student survey from February this year, where they said that students are not opposed to AI, but they are wary of systems that reduce coherence and agency. So reflecting on all of this, across all of our work with the panel, with the student panel, one message comes through again and again, that students value design that helps them understand their own learning. And this chimes perfectly with the what we're trying to do around AI, moving away from product towards process. Students find that what is intuitive or is good, but what feels unclear, then they need more support. So this reflective dimension is increasingly important in an AI environment. And again, research backs this up, as Tommy Sue and colleagues said in their really interesting paper. Again, there's a link to this on the last slide. They describe an idea of what they call a cognitive mirror, meaning that AI tools don't simply provide answers, or they shouldn't, but instead they have the capacity to externalize a learner's thinking so that they can see and refine their own processes and their own thinking and their learning. And our colleague Mike Sharples, who's a professor at the Open University of Digital Technologies, has done a lot of work on the roles of AI and how we can, as educators, make sure that students really get to grips and understand with not just getting an answer from AI, but how they can use it in a better way, all geared towards personalisation. So there's lots of potential. We're trying to push the agenda towards it not replacing human judgment, and AI is a digital tool, a partner in that, and it can be used to deepen learning and thinking. And when used well, it can help learners really get to grips with misconceptions, track their progress, and make more informed choices. So looking ahead, I think certainly at the Open University, we've got a very clear direction, but we know it's not easy. The overriding goal is to make sure that personalisation begins with understanding our learners, understanding their needs and their reflections, and that responsible AI begins by listening to what our students are saying. Both of the frameworks that I've showed you today are very much founded in sector research and listening to our own students and seeing the themes that are emerging. And when students are partners in that process, when their insights shape those structures and we can build their ideas and choices into learning, then we can avoid those pitfalls of over-personalisation and instead create experiences that are coherent, supportive and meaningful. The student panel that I've described to you already gives us a strong mechanism to do that, and that culture is firmly embedded at the Open University. That if we begin to embed student voice from the very beginning of design, we can ensure that this AI-enabled personalisation enhances their agency rather than reducing it, supports them, and by extension from learning also into assessment, of course, in ways that remain genuinely human-centred. We're very excited about an upcoming project that we've just got some internal funding for, which is called Better Words for AI. You might have seen some of the images in this PowerPoint are from a website called Better Images of AI, which it's not an OU thing, it's a third-party independent project, which is brilliant because it curates pictures, images of AI that are not not using AI to create them. And the main thing is that they try to break down barriers in terms of things like glowing brains inside a head or an outstretched robot hand shaking a human hand. Those are the sorts of things that you would get if you Google images of AI. A better way forward is to try to represent our real relationship as human beings with AI. So better images of AI inspired us to put together a project called Better Words. And what we're going to do is exactly what, walk the talk, if you like, and get the students involved in co-creating a lexicon of words to represent AI that are more realistic, more helpful, more meaningful, to take us away from misconceptions and things that might actually instill fear in people. So a typical example would be hallucination, one that we all know very well. What does that actually mean? Does an AI, have a dream and hallucinate? No. So it's things like that. We want to try and redress the balance, and we're doing that by doing everything that I've just talked about today. We're going to include students in focus groups initially to gather ideas, and then workshops to actually co-create the lexicon, which hopefully, if it's successful, will be rolled out sector-wide. So on this next slide, there's just a few links, which when these are shared, you'll be able to use. And please do get in touch with myself or Miriam, and we'll be very, very happy to talk to you a little bit more. And thank you very much. I do have a couple of question prompts, but I haven't looked in the chats, so I'll hand back over to you, and Kamakshi, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this very interesting, very rich presentation. I think there were a lot of things there. So let me first maybe go to the chat because there are some questions there. Maybe we can start with the student panel you mentioned, because Ellen asks, is there a specific design approach that you're using when consulting the student panel? And on what level are you consulting them, and how does it look in practice?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I mean, I could talk for another half hour just about the panel, and please do get in touch if you want to know more details. But yes, there is a specific design approach. The main thing is that any activity that the panel undertakes has to lead to a very specific design decision. So that ensures that the panel isn't just about gaining feedback, because we all want feedback. We all would like to know what students are thinking, but it has to lead to a design decision. So our panel coordinator has a document that they call a supporting schedule with very, very specific questions. So when the learning designer is working with the academics, they can make sure that the panel is used correctly. And on what level and what does it look like in practice? So we as a learning designer, they put the survey together, so they look at the best types of questions, whether it's a free text response or a Likert scale or whatever the mechanism works best and matches. That's then put in front of the coordinator to decide whether it's viable, and if it is, it's developed and then buddy checked by another learning designer to ensure that it's all coherent. And then if it's for the full panel, it goes to everybody. If it's less than 30 minutes, students do that voluntarily. If it would take them longer, then there's a sliding scale of participation vouchers, just to make sure that students aren't being kind of used and their time is being used needlessly and so on.
Thank you, Eleanor. I see, Ellen, you can take the floor as well for your second question on the cognitive mirror, I think.
Okay, sorry, I don't want to pose all the questions
Go
here.
ahead.
But no, yeah, I was wondering, because I thought you mentioned somewhere in your story, Eleanor, that you would use the AI as a kind of mirror, but I understood it as a content-related mirror for students to reflect on their own understandings and misunderstandings. But I was wondering, because sometimes the content that you get from the AI is not really, it can be wrong also, so it can contain misconceptions as well. So how can you be sure whether you are correcting your own misconceptions or that you are actually learning misconceptions that the AI posts? So
that's a huge problem, isn't it? And something that we hear time and again from the teams that we work with. It's particularly problematic with access or level 1 modules, students who perhaps haven't had chance to develop the skills of critical thinking that will enable them to thoroughly critically evaluate the AI output. But you're absolutely right. If they're not experts in the domain, then they can't know whether that AI output is correct or not. So there's two main things messages that we give to all academics to give to students, because in learning design we don't work directly with students other than through the panel, and that is always fact check. And again, it's about giving them ideas and support about how to do that, how to verify that the AI output is correct, and always reference their use of AI and be transparent about that. And that goes for staff too, obviously. But yes, it is a challenge. What we're trying to do at the moment, because all of our module teams in the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences are stress testing every single assessment across every module, which is a huge task, to assess the robustness of the assessment for AI. So how easy would it be for a student to just put the question into an AI tool, generate an answer, copy and paste without any interaction? So what we're trying to do at the moment is to put stepping stones in place within those assessments, or radically overhaul the assessment to make it completely different, to make sure that students have a scaffolded way of showing their learning that doesn't rely on just pasting AI output. But it is a massive challenge.
Yeah, thank you. I still have a couple of questions, and we do have time, so I'm going to ask them. I was really struck by what you said, that the student panel really shows that students value design that helps them understand their own learning, which I think is such a central part of what we do. But I was wondering if you could elaborate on this, because the other use of AI that you mentioned was as this cognitive mirror. And what I understood there was the prompt that a student gives to AI could also be seen as externalizations of their train of thought. And I was wondering, how do you capture that, and how do you use that in practice, and how do you maybe how do you design around that kind of approach?
Yeah, a very good question. Yeah, I mean, it's about encouraging students, or encouraging the academics writing the content, to write it in such a way that enables students to get, for want of a better analogy, show they're working out. You know, show how they've started as knowing nothing at all to becoming an expert in that, and that's the process. That's you know, the learning. There's a lot of research at the moment going on around reframing Bloom's taxonomy for an AI age, which looks at rewriting you know, the verbs within the taxonomy to make them more specific and pertinent to how a student might interact with AI. I think that's quite a useful approach. And looking at learning outcomes as well, reframing how we write learning outcomes so that they are much more specific to AI style interactions than you know, than a general learning outcome might be. So it's about starting from design in terms of writing the activity, so that it prompts the learner to think about what they're doing and how they've done it. So a typical activity now in an adapted style assessment will probably include some sort of embedded reflection that is very, very specific about what prompts did you put in? How did you edit them? How did you fact check? What did you then do in order to reprompt? What conversation did you have with the AI? But all within the context of trying to keep it simple enough to not use up all the word count of the assessment on that kind of process focused approach. It's getting the balance between showing knowledge and understanding and application, and looking at that process as well and getting that balance right. And obviously, as I said before, that's much more of a challenge in the lower levels where you've got less. I mean, a third of our students at the OU come from a widening participation background. So we're talking about adult learners who have probably, perhaps had a bad experience of education and coming to us with quite low qualifications as a baseline. How do we move them up those levels of critical thinking to be able to have the skills to do that effectively is challenging.
Yeah, but it's nice to see that this new technology can help in externalizing basically the metacognitive processes as well, and it makes it more tangible in that way. The other question that I had, I'm just going to check if there are some new things here, is basically around the professionalization of your learning designers and academics, teachers, because it seems to me that you have a very rich way of approaching learning design, and you have the framework supporting, so the AI literacy framework, responsible by design framework, and these student surveys. So it sounds that you're doing a lot around this already, but how is that experience for the individual teacher? How do they get into this, understanding these new tools and understanding, let's say, the OU culture of designing for learning? Yeah.
Again, that's a really interesting aspects. I think across the OU, there's various different teams of people working on AI from different perspectives, developing different tools, training, and so on. And what I'm doing in learning design, and what colleagues like Miriam, who I mentioned, and others, is we are looking at it through the pedagogical lens. So AI in learning, teaching, and assessment. So we've recently put on lots of different workshops. Back in earlier this year in March, we did designing assessment workshops that were specifically focused on making short to medium term adaptations to assessment, things that people could instantly engage with and tweak to their assessments to make them more robust to the misuse of AI. And then we've built on that by trying to then say, right, now's the time to move towards actually embedding AI. So we've in last month we've got another one next week, workshops aimed at embedding AI in learning, teaching, and assessment. So what we've done is we've taken different discipline areas and we've generated model examples so that staff aren't starting from a blank page. They've got some knowledge that they can fall back on. We're giving them the skills, probably overloading them a little bit, but we do try to start slow and build up. Lots, from the frameworks, but also supporting resources like, for example, we've got conversation starter cards that are based on Mike Sharple's AI roles. We've got a suite of PowerPoint resources based on a JISC adapting assessment in the age of AI. We've made infographics about things like the carbon footprint of AI. So there's lots and lots of resources that we've produced that academics can use straight away without having to create themselves, giving people a first, step up the ladder. And then we've put on lots and lots of workshops. Miriam, who's absolutely amazing at making things happen, and that's what we need more of as well. Is Miriam put together a thing called the Fiesta, which was the Festival of AI Exploration of Strategies in Teaching and Assessment. Sounds contrived, but it was brilliant. And as an acronym, it works. So what's not to like? And the Fiesta was a 2-week program of events that ran throughout the first 2 weeks of September. and it was all online, and we invited different academics from across the whole university to present on anything to do with AI. What are they doing to embed AI in learning, teaching, assessment? We had over 60 different presentations, and we reached about 2,500 members of staff altogether. So it was hugely successful, and off the back of that, we're just building on that and keeping the ball rolling. And we've also got a thing called the Exploratorium, which is based on a SharePoint site, and it's a kind of one-stop shop for everything to do with AI. So centralizing everything, streamlining all our resources, and constantly telling people about it.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think then we can move on to our third presentation by Branko. If you have more questions, please do just put them in the chat, because we could take some more at the end of for all speakers at the end of the session. But Branko, could I ask you to put up your slides? And so Branko Anđić is a researcher at Johannes Kepler University in Austria. He received his PhD in the field of STEAM education for visually impaired students. He's the author of more than 60 scientific articles in international peer-reviewed journals, and also the author of a biology textbook and teacher manual for pre-university education, and has been involved in several international and national projects in field education. And today he's going to talk about the ethical side of personalization. So please, Branko, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you please give me feedback? Can you see my screen and can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, perfectly. We can hear you.
That's great. That's great. So first task done. I would like to say my topic is about ethical consideration in personalization, and actually that is mostly also connected with digital technologies and artificial intelligence and so on. And this morning, actually, we had a huge bug in our internet system and the whole technical system at Johannes Kepler University, and actually that shows us or demonstrated us how fragile everything could be in digital world. So now we also do not have cable internet connection. I'm joining via Wi-Fi, and I hope the connection will stay stable. At the beginning, I would like to say to thank Stefan and Kamakshi for a nice organization and support, and also to Pedro and Eleanor on really nice presentation. I hope I can keep up in that direction. Before I start with my with my presentation, I would just like to give some background where I'm coming from. I'm a researcher at Center for Higher Education and AI Competent University teaching. This is newly established center at Johannes Kepler University, and our main tasks are artificial intelligence, open educational resources, organization of individual support for university teaching and research staff of using digital technologies, more specifically artificial intelligence in research and in education, organizing round tables, workshop, and develop usable resources for colleagues on this topic, but also to collect best practice examples and share it with our colleagues. Our center is only 1 year old, and we are really giving up to keep up with trends and in the field. Last year, I also participated in working group personalization in education, and today actually I will present the findings or results of my colleagues Valentina and Martia, and my results. We grounded this at the basis of our experience, available legal document, but as well on our experience that we are having from higher education. The whole chapter about ethical consideration personalization is also available online. Before I go further, I would like just to recall our university teaching is mostly and was mostly based in teacher-centered learning and teaching approaches. That means the teacher was, or lecturer, however, was a central figure in classroom, and everything circulated around teachers. I must also admit the biggest part of universities, a huge number of universities still organize on that level, on that approach. However, development in technological development and also COVID somehow contributed to more digitalization, distance learning, and that also contributed to personalization in higher education. When we are talking about digital technologies, using digital technologies to provide real-time feedback, adapt instruction to students' abilities and needs, and individualized pacing of learning path is mainly main contribution of digital technologies, or one of the main contributions of digital technologies to higher education. What is really important that we understand that personalization is hugely dependent on available data, or the data that we can share about our students, and then that means that we really should always think which data system that we are using is collecting from our students, and where is the border between ethical and unethical data collection, data sharing. Before we decide to use any educational system, of any digital system as a tool to personalize university or pre-university teaching, it's really important that we think, or that we are taking in consideration four main aspects. First of one is data privacy. So it is really important that we are aware, or that we have information, which information this system, digital system, is collecting from our students, where those information or those data are stored, who is having access to them, and for which purpose those data can be or could be used. Also, there is a really fine line between unethical observation of students and personalization. So we should always think which data we are collecting and how we are collecting those data. Equity is also of crucial importance in personalization. We should, when we are taking in consideration to use some digital system in personalization, then we should really think, is that system so designed that it can really support students with different needs and students with different abilities. Digital divide is also something that we should take into consideration. It is not only about access to digital technologies or internet connectivity. Later we will see that also connected with social and economical background in some specific societies. Once when we decide to use some specific digital system as a tool to personalize teaching, then next step in personalization is creating students' profile. For that, we need a really set of different information about our students, like previous knowledge, previous skills, learning styles, motivational factor, what they are doing on internet, their assessment performance, their motivation, and so on. Those data are highly private data, so it's really important that students are always informed which data are collected for them, where they are stored, and that they always have the rights to withdraw from those system if it's not acceptable for them. In European Union, there is several regulations that are regulating data collection in process of personalization in education in general, collecting the data from users. One, I think, of the most important is General Data Protection Regulation that define that we can only collect the data that are in line with legal regulation at a specific learning institution in country level or at European university level. It's really important when we are talking about higher education or educational institution that we should only collect those essential data that are necessary for learning and teaching purposes, not other than those data. It is really important that according to GDPR and other regulations in European Union, it's really important that we should not collect information that are related to recognition of an emotion from students or different others, the individuals that are involved in teaching and learning process. Also, it's really important that we always should stress to our students that is voluntary and that they can withdraw from that at any time. Each and every higher education institution in European Union should always clearly communicate with students which data are collected from them, where they are stored, for which purpose they can be used, and who is having access to those data. All collected data from students, if we want to do it in ethical manner, must be anonymized, and people or institutions that are having access should be really strictly organized and strictly ethically controlled from other institutions. Also, this sounds really well in paper from maybe legal point of view. However, there is a lot of practical challenges when we are talking about data collection and data storaging. For example, a lot of AI tools or general digital tools usually do not provide enough transparent information which data they are collecting for more students, also from which purpose they are sharing it with third-party fundings. Also, what is really important to say, for example, a lot of those digital providers, like for example, OpenAI that is developing ChatGPT, usually says that they are collecting the data, they are not sharing it with third-party fundings. However, third parties, however, they are using those data to improve their products. However, usually we think that they are using those data to improve quality in ChatGPT. However, OpenAI as a company is not developing only ChatGPT. There are other products that they can from which they can use our data to train and improve other products, not only, for example, ChatGPT. So this leads us to potential misuse of our data and misuse of the data, or use them for a purpose that we are not agree or aware of. And this is really risky, specifically in the field of education, since they can train at the base of the data of students' marketing strategies and so on. But another also risky point is discrimination. There is a lot of research articles and also practical examples that artificial intelligence and data that are collected, specifically historical data, can influence decision of AI developed system to produce gender-based or minority discriminatory decisions. Specifically, there is one really huge studies that was published in Nature some months ago that demonstrated the women's and Afro-American group of the people could be really hugely discriminated by ChatGPT, for example. When you're talking about using AI system in personalization in European Union, there is European Artificial Intelligence Acts and ethical guidelines that are published in last several years. These European Union ethical guidelines are defining that we can use artificial intelligence system in personalization or in general in higher education, not to replace human decision making, but only to support or to giving recommendation for humans. However, the final decision should be always made from human factors. It is really important that we should be aware that there is something that is called sovereignty, and sovereignty means that each and every individual in European Union, then country, and also European Union as a legal entity should have control in the private data from citizens, and also decide who can have access to those data. European Union Artificial Intelligence Act defined that before we decide to use some artificial intelligence tool in our, specifically in education field, we as educators or as teachers should consider several ethical points. First is transparency. That means that we should be at first aware what are capabilities of tools, who is the company that develop tools, which data are collected, to where they are stored, and who is having access to those data. That all belongs to this transparency field. Then we should also share this information, clearly inform our students about those information. Next is explainability. That means that we as a higher education educators or teachers or professors, we should really know how our AI systems works, not from technical point of view, but mostly from how they are creating recommendation, and specifically we should be able to explain them in a pedagogical and didactical manner. We always should be aware that humans should be main factor, and there is a several approach. According to European Artificial Intelligence Act in this field, it could be human in the loop. That means that artificial intelligence tools are giving our recommendation, but we are accepting or rejecting them. Then human on the loop, meaning that artificial intelligence tools can make all process for us in making decision. However, we should always observe and control this process. Then human in control, that means that we are always responsible to create end decision from in artificial intelligence system. However, there is the one more human-related interaction with artificial intelligence tool, that is human out of the loop. However, in education, this is considered as unethical use, and that should not be good practice if using artificial intelligence in personalization in general in higher education. What is really important that this act is defining the safety should be also one of criteria that we as educators should be aware of it. And there is two level of defining the safety. The first level is to prevent any harmful output from artificial intelligence tools. However, the next level is that safety should be usability of artificial intelligence system or digital systems to create environment that allows students to achieve their maximum of their potential. However, even if we have all regulation, there is some reality, and in that reality there are digital device. Digital device is defined as inequality in access to digital devices, internet, and digital resources. And digital devices is having five dimension, and there is a colleagues DiMaggio and colleagues that are defining these 5 dimensions, and that was defined 25 years almost ago. However, these digital devices only it's not closing the gap between digital devices, in digital devices entities, but the gap getting more and more bigger and bigger. First part in digital device is access to digital equipment. That means software, hardware, and internet connection. Then control and access to internet and connectivity. And there is also a lot of discussion about location-specific internet access and location non-specific internet access. There is a huge difference. Are the students available to use internet only in the faculties, or also home? Is that unlimited access, and what is the speed of that access? The next level is also skill levels. The students should always be available or know how to use digital device and digital tools. In an ideal environment, students or individuals should always have a social support when we are talking about internet and digital devices, and also we should always have a skills, or students should always have a skills to use it for entertainment and education. The colleagues also defined that digital divide could be considered for several from several point of view. So, for example, the digital divide between old and I will speed up. This is a reminder that I spent almost 20 minutes. There is a digital divide between old and young people. There is a digital divide that is between poor and wealthy people, urban and rural, or according to geographical point of view. And the important thing is that we should always think the digital device could also affect personalization in our education. So we should be aware that digitally created personalization is always learning from our data. That means if the two students, one with high internet speed and another one with internet connectivity problem, are using the same system, one system can, the students with the same abilities could get a different learning path, not because they have different abilities or different level of previous knowledge and skills, but because of digital tools that they are using, or internet connectivity that can affect it. Here they are talking about digital inclusions, and there is also several key competencies. The first is technological skills. That means that we should develop such environment for safe using of internet and artificial intelligence in learning and teaching. Then also each and every individual should have a set of the skills for career enhancing usability of internet and digital tools, for developing their well-being, problem solving, coping skills, and social interaction. Usually when we are talking about digital devices, we are thinking about third world countries, or countries that are not so developed. However, we at Johannes Kepler University, we did research in Europe. So, for example, we identified that teachers in Croatia, Slovenia, and Turkey are using digital technology in a lower level than, for example, teachers in Austria. And this is really important because this leads us to another level where teachers are having really huge impact to digitalization, because they are usually acting as they are serving as a role models to students. Then they should support students or teachers to develop these digital skills. They are also supposed to mentoring students and explain them how to use personalized learning path, and also develop network or one society in which they can understand how to use artificial intelligence and digital tools for a personalized learning process. There is also one very important aspect in ethical consideration of ethical usability of digital tools in personalization in higher education. First, there is an erosion of social interactions. Sometimes if we are using digital tools to personalize higher educational learning path, that means that some of the students could be isolated in that learning path, so that they don't have peers for interaction and exchange. There is also a risk that if students are alone in this learning path, that they are only receiving information for digital device or for artificial intelligence tool, so that they are only receiving information. The AI tool is recommending and serving information as and serving information as digital tutors, so the students do not have enough engagement and enough exchange with other learning partner of peer, so that put them in passive recipient of information, not in position of active learning. And also there is one limited metacognitive development, or something that is in artificial intelligence research known as metacognitive laziness. That means that if artificial intelligence tools or digital tools that is creating personalized learning path, making decision instead of the students, they are not facing enough challenges, or those challenges are always to the in the zone under proximal development, and they are never the students are never in the position to finding solution to some higher problem, and they are not developing maximum capacity of their metacognitive development. This is also that sometimes we should be aware that if the personalization is super narrow, and if AI tool is creating super narrow personalized learning path, that is there is always a danger or risk that the students are exposed. Yes. I will be faster. That students are not exposed to enough creativity, curiosity, and that leads to less diversified learning path. If we want to use artificial intelligence and digital tools in ethical manner, then we should always think about always humans in the loop, on the loop, or in the control. Then we should use hybrid approach, and this is recommendation for research. That means that we should combine individual learning path in social learning and provide social learning experience. We should always provide enough information to students how algorithms that they are using in this personalized learning path are developed, and how they are making decision, and that should be always monitored and connect. Some really good examples that we find about regulation are Open University from United Kingdom and Fern University in Hagen. I would like also to give just brief information what we are doing here in Kepler. I think I have enough time for that one. Johannes Kepler University or Austria in higher education are offering specific AI ChatGPT academic. That means that is specific version of ChatGPT that is controlling the data that are collected from Austrian citizens are not leaving Austria, so they are stored in Austria, and the Austrian government is controlling who is giving access to it. So that is available for each and every higher education institution in Austria. That also allow us to personalize chatbot. That means that we can really in those academic ChatGPT create control at the basis of which data ChatGPT is giving the answer. So that means that we can select sources in which chatbot is developing that answers. Then we can also create or we can define interaction style. We can also train chatbot that it can give different responses to the basis students' prior knowledge. So if students are asking a question that is really simple, the answer should be also simple. And if, for example, students are asking a complex question, or they are using the complex field-specific words or construct, then ChatGPT can answer in a higher level. Those ChatGPT that we are having opportunity to personalize, they are also giving us opportunity that we can integrate games, simulation, so on. Or for example, train it to give the wrong answer and put the students in the role of quality checker, and they are correcting the answer that they are getting from ChatGPT academic. In Austria, we are also having the action of a digital open education resource. That means that we are sharing our resources. That also is important for personalization because we can use that resources to train digital specific tools for personalization, like those chatbots, on the data that are really correct and produce good quality answers, not random sources from internet. I hope I didn't talk too much. I wanted to share more information. However, I think the time is done.
Yeah,
Thank you very
we're
much.
nearly at the end, I'm afraid. So thank you so much, Branko. There was just one small question for you in the chat, which is when we're talking about data privacy, should we expand our definition of personal data to include things like any source of student-generated outputs, such as code, essay, and so on, because the conventional, especially when you're looking at it from a legal point of view, the conventional definition of personal data is quite specific in that context. But for these new approaches, effectively, should we do that?
Short answer, yes. Actually, I think there is some broad definition what are personal data. They are coming from European Union. Then each and every country is adapting it or adjusting it to their socio-economical background. And also in the specific countries, universities are adapting them to their students and their needs. And of course, it always depends what we are developing and what are the outputs. I also participated in shaping those regulations at Austria and the Johannes Kepler University, and that is always field specific. For example, if we are talking about code development, they are more prone to share codes. However, if it's like scientifically written text, then people are more strict that it is really something personal and something that should be protected and not shared with AI systems. So I think it's always field specific, and it always should be adjusted to learning environment in which that regulation is employed.
Yeah, thank you so much. If it's okay, Stefan, there is just one closing question I thought we could ask both speakers. I'm wondering, because I mean, from all the presentations that we've had today, there seems to be kind of opposing pressures and tensions in our educational system. And it seems for me to come down to, again, we have abundance of material available, and we're looking for ways to help our students find their way in this. So how do you think we should balance this? Balance guiding our students in making this choice, but at the same time making sure, are we in a danger of creating kind of new system or new hidden inflexible systems? So, will we in 2 years be talking about the filter bubble, which was caused by AI, because our students were navigated through these systems and always end up in like a closed echo chamber of education, basically? Is that something that we should be aware of and look out for? And how could we mitigate it? Maybe I go to Pedro first. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Well, I did enjoy while I was doing my PhD to read a book from John Tron about the control that you have. And I would say that by the moment that you create a lot of skills, more autonomous skills in your set tools as a person, I think that you could provide more flexibility. Otherwise, you have to, for people that has a lower level of skills, you need to have a lot of control and give a lot of structure for them, so they don't. Well, first of all, they don't feel loose, and I think that Eleanor touched upon that topic quite well. Because what you want to give is to that person is to grow up or to grow as an individual, and by the moment that you are getting more autonomous, getting more skills, then you are able to use a set of other options. And I would say that AI, it's going to put a more different, like what Branko was talking in one of his slides. There will be bigger gaps between people, because AI is going to give a lot of power of control of getting into that knowledge way further than other people. So you need to give support and help for the ones who have less autonomy, less knowledge, less skill, for them to somehow to get into the higher level possible. But yeah, that's my
It's her. No,
my
that's fine.
perspective on
That's
this topic.
perfect. Thank you. Branko, what do you think?
Thank you. Thank you for this question. Thank you, Pedro, for interesting, inspiring discussion. Yes, what I think is actually there is one really interesting article that I read some months ago, published in Science, and they are discussing. There is two group of scientists. One group that was promoting the artificial intelligence tools is presenting all standing point in some specific field, and then another that the AI tool is always promoting just specific standing point in specific field. And then in this article in Science, I can share it afterwards, they demonstrated both group of the scientists were wrong, because actually AI tool is always depends in which socio-political environment it's developed. So for example, if you ask something ChatGPT about political situation in China, and you ask DeepSeek, you will get two totally opposite answers, because DeepSeek is Chinese product and ChatGPT is American product. So you will get two different answers. That means the AI can present all standing point, but only from specific environment. This leads us that we should really always lead our students, or always teach them that they should be aware that AI is learning a lot of about us, that we should be always careful what we are sharing with those tools, because then it could be used for some unethical purposes. And also some days ago, it was really interesting publication that they demonstrated that AI can influence decision people how they are voting. So if that is the case, if the information that we are sharing could be used for a marketing purpose that can influence our decision how we are voting, that is a serious, and our students should be aware of those things and then decide what they are doing.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very nice, because I hear from Pedro's answer that the core of what teachers do, which is look at, the skill levels of students and their knowledge, and helping them get to that next level, that's not going to change. We still need to go to do that. And at the same time, Branko's answer basically says, be critical of the tools that you use, because, they are developed in a particular context, and that is also not going to change, although our technologies might be changing. Okay, I think that's probably all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for joining our webinar series on personalization. This was the final session. Stefan, did you still want to say some closing
No, just
words
maybe
on this?
thanks to the speakers today, Pedro, Branko, and Eleanor, and also to you, Kamakshi, for moderating, of course.
Thank
and I hope
you.
to see you next time. So,
Yep.
Thank you
so
have
much.
a nice rest of the day.
Have a good day.
You as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
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 Bye.